The silver spaceship slipped through Earth's atmosphere without making a sound. It moved like a ghost across the blue morning sky, its metal skin catching the sunlight. Commander Tahoe watched Earth grow larger through the massive window. His scaled hands were clasped behind his back, and his yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the planet. Unlike most beings in the Federation, he had visited many worlds. None were quite like this one. "The readings are fascinating," said Science Officer Juan. She stood at her station, the screens in front of her flashing with data. Her 4 eyes blinked at different times as she read the numbers. 2 eyes checked atmospheric conditions while the others tracked life signs. "These humans live in places that would kill most intelligent species. They breathe air that would poison the Ktarthi. They drink water that would dissolve Mavonian skin." Tahoe's tail twitched slightly. That's why the Council is worried. Any species that thrives in such harsh conditions might be dangerous. Or remarkably adaptable, Juan countered. She had always been more optimistic than him. Tahoe didn't answer. The Federation had discovered hundreds of new species, but humans were different. They built powerful weapons but also created beautiful art. They fought terrible wars but also helped strangers. The Federation couldn't decide if humans were a threat or a potential ally. The ship's soft hum was interrupted by hurried footsteps. Junior Officer Dongan approached, his face showing concern. The young officer's scales were still bright blue, marking his youth. "Commander, I have urgent news," said Dongan with a quick bow. "The Vederi scout ship sent to collect samples from the northern region hasn't reported in. We've lost all contact. It may have crashed." Tahoe frowned. The Vederi were the most militant faction in the Federation. They had pushed for a more aggressive approach to Earth. "How long has it been missing?" 6 hours, sir. Keep trying to contact them. Don't alert the Council yet." Tahoe returned his gaze to the planet below. This could cause problems. Park Hyun-soo breathed in the cool mountain air. He had been hiking since sunrise, enjoying the quiet forest trails. At 32, he spent every free weekend in these mountains, escaping his busy job in the city. The morning had been perfect until he heard the strange noise. At first, he thought it was thunder, but the sky was clear. Then he saw black smoke rising above the trees ahead. Hyun-soo ran toward it, pushing through thick bushes until he reached a small clearing. What he saw made him stop and stare. A tear in the earth stretched for 50 meters, and at the end of this deep groove sat what could only be a spaceship. It wasn't very large, perhaps the size of a bus, but its design was clearly not human. The silver hull was cracked open, and smoke poured from the damaged sections. Hyun-soo stood frozen for only a moment before pulling out his phone. His hand shook as he called emergency services. Then, despite everything he knew about dangerous crash sites, he moved closer to the ship. "Hello," he called. "Is anyone alive in there?" A weak sound came from inside, something between a groan and a click. Hyun-soo looked around, found a fallen branch, and used it to pry open what appeared to be a damaged door. The metal gave way with a screech, and Hyun-soo peered inside. 3 beings lay trapped in twisted metal. They looked somewhat like large lizards standing upright, with scaled skin in different colors. Their eyes were large and yellow. One was clearly dead, its neck bent at an impossible angle. The other 2 moved weakly, dark liquid leaking from cuts in their scales. Hyun-soo's heart raced, but he didn't run. Instead, he climbed into the ship. "I'll help you," he said, knowing they probably couldn't understand. "Help is coming." Within an hour, other hikers and local rescue teams arrived. News of the crash spread quickly. By sunset, military vehicles surrounded the area. But not before local villagers had already helped remove the injured aliens from the wreckage. The injured Vederi were treated in a makeshift field hospital. Local doctors worked alongside veterinarians, trying to understand the aliens' biology. Nobody panicked. Nobody tried to hurt the visitors. They simply helped. On the Federation ship, Commander Tahoe received the report with surprise. They did what? He asked the communications officer. The humans found the crashed Vedari ship. Instead of capturing or killing the survivors, they organized a rescue operation. They're currently treating the injured crew members. Taeho shared a look with Science Officer Juwon. Her 4 eyes all widened at the same time. In the Grand Federation Council chamber, Councillor Minho presented the report to the assembled representatives of 50 alien species. The huge room fell silent as video footage showed humans working together to save beings they had never seen before. They helped their potential enemies without question. Minho said, his voice showing clear disbelief. They put themselves at risk to save strangers from another world. Elder Counselor Kimmo, whose species had observed humans for centuries from a distance, nodded slowly. Perhaps now you understand why we've watched them for so long. They are primitive, argued a Vedari representative. They only acted out of ignorance. No, countered Minho. They recognized the Vedari were not human. They knew they were helping aliens. They simply didn't care. To them, life is life. The council chamber filled with murmurs as representatives discussed this development. Perhaps, Minho said, silencing the room again, we should reconsider our approach to this species. They may be exactly what our divided federation needs. The Great Hall of the United Nations headquarters buzzed with excitement. 6 months had passed since the aliens officially revealed themselves to humanity. Today marked the opening of the first permanent alien embassy on Earth. Kim Suman, Korea's representative to the new Interspecies Relations Committee, watched as the Federation delegation entered. She still found it amazing to see so many different alien forms. Some had scales, others fur. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4 or 6. Some floated above the ground. Yet all were now working with humans as equals. The alien called Juwon approached her. The 4-eyed scientist had become something of a friend over the past months. We have brought more teaching modules, Juwon said, her translator converting her clicks and whistles into smooth Korean. Your people learn quickly. Suman smiled. Everyone wants to understand alien science. The medical technologies you've shared have already saved many lives. Across the room, a group of human artists showed their work to fascinated aliens. Music played from another corner. A human cellist performing with an alien whose instrument created sounds no human ear had heard before. Far above Earth, General Juno stared at the blue planet through the viewport of his command ship. His scaled face showed no emotion, but his tail twitched with irritation. They give these primitives our technology freely, he said to his officers gathered around the strategy table. Technology they barely understand. Captain Doa, his most loyal commander, nodded. The council thinks humans are special because they saved a few Vedari lives. These humans are unpredictable, Juno continued. They fight among themselves constantly, yet they stop to help our crashed ship. They build weapons that could destroy their entire planet, yet they use much of their resources for art and music. He turned to face his officers. We need to understand their combat capabilities. The other Vedari officers nodded in agreement. The Vedari had always been the Federation's warriors, the protectors. They couldn't properly protect the Federation without understanding all potential threats. In the Grand Federation Council chamber, thousands of light years from Earth, Elder Jiho rose from his seat. The ancient being's skin was pale and wrinkled. He had lived for over 500 years and served on the council for most of that time. I wish to address the council regarding humanity, Jiho said, his voice surprisingly strong for his frail appearance. The chamber grew quiet. Elder Jiho rarely spoke at meetings anymore. I must issue a formal warning about humans, he said. They fight differently. There are reasons we have kept distance from their kind. Councillor Minho frowned. With respect, Elder, humans have shown only friendship since contact. They're still learning about space travel. They pose no threat. Young Minho, Jiho said with a small smile, I have studied the history of many species. Human history shows a pattern. When threatened, when their kind are harmed, they become. He paused, searching for the right word. Unstoppable. A murmur ran through the chamber. We should proceed carefully with these beings, Joe concluded. Slowly. They are more dangerous than they appear. But the warning came too late. On a small island in the Pacific Ocean, the Human Research Station appeared ordinary from the outside. 20 scientists lived and worked there, studying new farming methods. The Federation had provided equipment to help them grow food in harsh conditions. The attack came just before dawn. 3 Vidari ships appeared in the sky, firing weapons that destroyed the communication tower first. Dr. Lee Minwoo was checking plant samples when the first explosion shook the building. He ran to the window and saw the alien ships. Emergency evacuation. He shouted into the station's intercom. Everyone to the boats. Now. Years of safety drills paid off. Instead of trying to contact help or fight back, the scientists focused on getting everyone out alive. Within 5 minutes, all 20 scientists were in boats, pushing away from the island as the research station burned behind them. From his ship, General Chunho watched with interest. No defense systems, no weapons fired. They simply ran. "Sir," reported Captain Doa, "all humans appear to have escaped. Should we pursue?" Chunho considered this. No, this was merely a test. He turned from the viewport. But we need more information. Let's see how they respond to a more direct provocation. 3 days later, a civilian transport ship carrying supplies and passengers between Earth and the new human outpost on Mars received an emergency distress call. The ship's captain, Yoon Jaya, diverted to help. It was a trap. The moment they came close to the supposed distress signal, Vidari ships surrounded them. Before they could send a message to Earth, the transport was boarded. 20 humans, crew and passengers, were taken prisoner. Captain Doa led the boarding party himself. He was surprised by how little resistance the humans offered when they saw they were outgunned. "You are now subjects for study," he told the frightened humans. "Cooperate, and you will not be harmed." Back on his command ship, General Jundo viewed the captured humans through a security feed. "Now we will see what these creatures are truly capable of," he said. "Monitor Earth's response closely." He had no idea what he had just unleashed. Within hours of the transport ship going silent, the news spread through Federation communication channels. The humans are missing. On Earth, leaders gathered in emergency session. Military forces went on high alert. And in space, Federation diplomats began receiving urgent messages from human representatives. The messages all contained the same simple demand: return our people. Immediately. The Federation Council chamber had never seen such chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, some standing on their seats to be heard. The emergency session had been called the moment news of the Vidari attack reached the council. "This unauthorized action may destroy everything we've built." Councillor Minho's voice finally cut through the noise. The chamber fell silent. 6 months of careful diplomacy, ruined by General Chunho's reckless behavior. The Vidari representative, a tall, heavily armored figure, stood firm. The general was conducting necessary security research. The humans will understand military necessity. Elder Jiho, who rarely left his chambers these days, sat quietly in his elevated seat. His ancient eyes looked tired. "You do not understand," he said, his soft voice somehow carrying to every corner of the room. "We do not harm humans because they do not know how to stop." The chamber quieted further. Elder Jiho continued, "Look through our oldest records. There are stories, warnings about worlds who encountered humans, and then disappeared." "Superstition," scoffed the Vidari representative. "Send diplomats immediately," ordered the council leader. "Explain this was not authorized. Offer reparations." Federation diplomat Yunju was already on her way to Earth when the council made its decision. Her ship landed at the special diplomatic port in Geneva, where human leaders had gathered for an emergency meeting. Yunju had spent years studying human culture. She had learned their languages and customs. She considered herself an expert on human behavior. But she had never seen humans like this before. The faces around the meeting table were cold. There were none of the usual smiles, no polite small talk, just hard stares and tight lips. "Please understand," she told the human representatives, choosing her words carefully. This was not sanctioned by. She stopped mid-sentence as alerts flashed across her communication device. Her 4 eyes blinked rapidly as she read the message. She looked up at the humans, confused. "You've launched ships," she said. "Military vessels." The human leader, a woman named Director Park, nodded once. "We have. But we're negotiating right now," Yunju said. "No," Director Park replied. "We're not negotiating. We're informing you of what's happening. Return our people immediately, or we will take them back." In his command ship, General Chunho received the first alerts with amusement. Human ships had been detected leaving Earth's orbit. They were old-fashioned, using simple propulsion technology rather than the advanced drives the Federation used. "No," Director Park replied. "We're not negotiating. We're informing you of what's happening. Return our people immediately, or we will take them back." In his command ship, General Chunho received the first alerts with amusement. Human ships had been detected leaving Earth's orbit. They were old-fashioned, using simple propulsion technology rather than the advanced drives the Federation used. "They're coming to rescue their people," he told Captain Doa. "How predictable." "Should we prepare defensive positions, sir?" Doa asked. "No need," Juno replied. "Their ships are primitive. We'll detect them long before they reach us." But the warning systems never triggered. The first sign something was wrong came when the lights in the command ship flickered. "What was that?" Junho demanded. "Unknown, sir," replied a technician. "Some kind of power fluctuation." The ship's communication system came to life suddenly, broadcasting on all channels. But instead of words, there was just a strange sound. A low, steady beat, like a heartbeat. And then reports started coming in from ships throughout the Vedari fleet. "Sir, we've lost contact with the outer patrol ships. Security systems are failing on decks 3 through 7. Something's in the ventilation system." General Chunho was confused. The humans didn't have technology that could bypass Vedari security. They didn't have ships fast enough to reach the fleet undetected. This shouldn't be possible. "They're everywhere," reported a panicked officer from a support vessel. "They're using our own systems against us." From the shadows of the command deck, a figure moved. A human figure. Somehow, they had gotten aboard the command ship itself. "General Chunho," the human said in perfect Vedari language. "Return our people, and we will leave peacefully." "How did you get on my ship?" Chunho demanded, reaching for his weapon. The human didn't flinch. "We were always here, hiding in your blind spots, learning your systems." On a Federation observation vessel nearby, scientist Dongwu recorded everything. His job was to document the evolution of interactions between humans and other species. He watched in fascination as human stealth teams appeared on ship after ship throughout the Vedari fleet. They didn't destroy the Vedari ships. They didn't kill Vedari soldiers unless absolutely necessary. They disabled systems, created distractions, and moved through the fleet like ghosts. "They aren't fighting to win," Dongwu noted in his records. "They're fighting to get their people back, and they will not stop." The humans had somehow managed to hide small teams aboard Federation ships during the cultural exchange missions. Teams of special forces soldiers who had learned alien technology, alien languages, and alien weaknesses. They had been preparing for this possibility from the very beginning. On the detention level of Chunho's ship, alarms blared as security systems failed. The human prisoners looked up as the door to their cell slid open. A human soldier stood there, offering them a way out. "Time to go home," the soldier said. Back on the command deck, General Chunho finally understood the trap he had walked into. The humans had let themselves be studied so they could study the Federation in return. "Stop them," he ordered. "Use lethal force if necessary." But it was too late. Throughout the fleet, humans were extracting their people, using the Vidari's own transportation systems against them. Captain Doa rushed onto the command deck. "Sir, they've taken control of the detention level. The prisoners are gone." "Impossible," Shunho shouted. "Find them." The mysterious human on the command deck spoke again. "Your security codes have been changed. Your weapon systems are locked. Your engines will shut down in 30 seconds. For the first time in his long military career, General Shunho felt afraid. Not because he was losing a battle, but because he didn't understand the enemy he faced. "What are you?" he asked the human. "Just people who want our friends back," the human replied. Then added, "When your systems restart in 1 hour, you'll find a message. It explains how to avoid misunderstandings like this in the future." And then the human was gone, as mysteriously as they had appeared. Moments later, the entire ship went dark. On his observation vessel, Dongwu finished his recording. "The humans have retrieved their people without destroying a single Vidari ship," he noted with amazement. "They could have crippled the fleet. They could have killed the general. They did neither. They simply took back what was theirs." He added a personal note. "I believe Elder Jiho was right to warn us. Not because humans are violent, but because they are determined beyond all reason when protecting their own." The Federation Council chamber had never been so quiet. 500 representatives from across the galaxy sat in stunned silence as they watched the video recordings. The images showed how the supposedly primitive humans had infiltrated and disabled the mighty Vidari fleet, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Councillor Minho glanced at the Vidari representatives, whose scales had turned a pale shade of gray, a sign of extreme distress in their species. "Play the final sequence again," ordered the council leader. The large screen showed human soldiers helping injured Vidari to medical bays. It showed human technicians repairing critical ship systems they had disabled only hours before. It showed human commanders offering the defeated Vidari safe passage back to their homeworld. "I don't understand," said a representative from a warrior culture similar to the Vidari. "Why help enemies who took their people? Why not destroy them when they had the chance?" Elder Jiho, who had warned about humans from the beginning, leaned forward in his seat. "Because they fight differently," he said simply. "They fight to end conflicts, not extend them." General Chuno stood in the center of the chamber, his once proud posture now bent with shame. He had been brought to answer for his unauthorized actions against Earth. "They infiltrated my ships using our own security protocols," Junho admitted. "They'd bypassed our best defenses. They could have killed my entire crew." He paused, his voice growing quieter. "They could have destroyed us. Instead, they showed mercy." Murmurs spread through the council chamber. Mercy was not a concept many species understood in war. Victory meant total defeat of the enemy. This human approach was strange to many. "Their leader spoke to me before they left," Juno continued. "She said, 'We don't want enemies. We want our people safe. Make sure this doesn't happen again.'" The council leader looked troubled. "This human ability to infiltrate our most secure systems is concerning. They could be a greater threat than we realized. Or the greatest allies we could hope for," countered Minho. "They've shown restraint when they could have shown vengeance." Elder Jiho rose slowly from his seat, his ancient body moving with difficulty. The chamber fell silent again. When the oldest member of the council stood, all listened. "I move for the creation of a new galactic law," Jiho said. His voice was soft, but carried clearly through the room. "The first new law in over 500 years." The council leader looked shocked. "What law do you propose, Elder?" "Humans are off limits. We don't harm them," Jiho said simply. "That's not how our laws work," objected the Vidari representative. "We can't give one species special protection. It is not for their protection," Jiho replied with a small smile. "It is for ours." The debate lasted for days. Many species were uncomfortable with creating a special law for humans. Others worried it would give humans too much power in the galaxy. Finally, Elder Jiho addressed the council one last time. We learned this lesson millennia ago, he explained to the junior members. Some species cannot be conquered, only befriended. Then he revealed a shocking truth. His own species had encountered humans thousands of years earlier, when both were young in the stars. Those who tried to treat humans as enemies had disappeared from history. Those who treated humans as friends had thrived. The law passes, announced the council leader after the final vote. From this day forward, it is forbidden to take hostile action against humans or human settlements. 3 months later, the council chamber was filled to capacity. Representatives from every Federation world had come to witness a historic moment, the formal invitation for Earth to join the Galactic Federation. Human representative Kim Min-soo stood before the assembled aliens. She was a small woman by human standards, but her presence filled the enormous room. She wore a simple blue suit rather than elaborate diplomatic robes, which many found refreshingly direct. "We accept your invitation to join the Federation," she said, her voice clear and strong. "But we have much to learn from each other." Murmurs of approval filled the chamber. "Humans are young among the stars," Min-soo continued. "We make mistakes. We act without thinking sometimes, but we wish to grow, to become better. With your help, perhaps we can." After the ceremony, Elder Geo approached the human representative. "You understand what really happened, don't you?" he asked quietly. Min-soo nodded. "The law isn't to protect us. It's to remind everyone that some conflicts shouldn't be started because they can't be controlled once they begin." Jiho's ancient eyes showed approval. "Your people understand more than they reveal." "We've had practice," Min-soo replied. "We spent thousands of years fighting ourselves before we learned how destructive that could be." In the months that followed, a fascinating cultural exchange began. Across Federation space, beings began studying peculiar human concepts that had rarely been considered before: mercy toward defeated enemies, forgiveness of past wrongs, second chances for those who made mistakes. On the Vedari homeworld, General Chuno had been stripped of his rank but not imprisoned. This human concept of rehabilitation, rather than punishment, was new to his people. He spent his days studying human history, trying to understand the species that had defeated him so completely yet spared his life. "They have fought more wars against themselves than most species have fought against others," he told his former officers. "They know the cost of conflict better than we do." One day, a visitor arrived at Chuno's home, Captain Doa, his former second-in-command. "I've been assigned to the Human Cultural Exchange Program," Doa said. "They asked specifically for me." Shunho was surprised. "The humans requested you, but you helped capture their people. That's why they want me," Doha explained. "They said someone who knows what it's like to be on the wrong side of a conflict might help build stronger bridges." For the first time since his defeat, Shunho felt something like hope. Perhaps there was something to learn from these strange, merciful creatures after all. In the Great Federation Library, a new section was created: Human Philosophy. The most popular text was a simple document titled, "Why We Choose Peace When We Could Choose War." It became required reading for all Federation diplomatic staff. Commander Taho stood on the bridge of the Federation flagship Guardian. His scales had faded with age, turning from bright green to a soft gray. 10 years had passed since humans joined the Federation. 10 good years of peace and progress. Until today. "What are they?" he asked, staring at the strange ships on the view screen. They were dark, almost impossible to see against the blackness of space. Their shapes seemed to shift and change as if they weren't fully solid. "Unknown, sir," replied his science officer. "They appeared at the edge of our galaxy 3 days ago. They've destroyed every outpost in their path." Taiho's crew was different now. Where once only Vedari had served on military vessels, now the bridge held beings from a dozen worlds, including humans. Lieutenant Gina stood at the tactical station. She was small for a human, but Taiho had learned that size meant little with this species. Her mind was quick and creative in ways that still surprised him. Conventional tactics have failed. Taiho admitted, looking at the reports from other ships. 3 battle groups tried to stop them. All destroyed. The bridge fell silent. The dark ships would reach a populated system within days. What if we try something different? Lieutenant Gina said. All eyes turned to her. Let's try to communicate first. Some of the crew looked doubtful, especially the Vederi officers. Fighting was what they knew. Talking to an enemy that had already destroyed Federation ships seemed foolish. Explain, Taiho said simply. We've been assuming they're attacking us, Gina said. What if they don't understand they're causing harm? What if they perceive reality differently than we do? It was a very human thought. Most species in the Federation would never consider such a possibility. But 10 years of working with humans had taught Taiho to listen to their strange ideas. Prepare all communication systems, he ordered. We'll try to make contact. For 2 days, they sent messages in every language, every format, every frequency the Federation knew. The dark ships continued forward, destroying a small research station in their path. It's not working, said the Vederi weapons officer, his tail twitching with impatience. We should attack while we still can. But Gina wasn't ready to give up. Sir, we've been sending them our language. What if we try to learn theirs? Taiho nodded. Do it. They recorded the energy patterns from the dark ships, analyzed them, looked for any patterns. Gina worked without sleep, alongside scientists from 6 different worlds. There, she said finally, pointing to a repeating pattern in the energy readings. They're talking to each other. And look at this. When our ships attacked, their energy patterns changed. They responded to the threat. On a nearby Federation world, evacuation ships were landing. The dark ships would reach this planet next. Former General Chuno, now working as a civilian coordinator, was organizing the movement of millions of beings to safety. Once, he would have been preparing defenses, planning to fight to the last soldier. Now he found himself working to save lives instead of end them. A human evacuation expert named Han worked beside him. We need more time, Han said, looking at the crowd still waiting to board ships. Junho nodded grimly. The Guardian is our last line of defense. Back on the Guardian, Taiho made his decision. We've learned enough of their energy language to try again. Send the new message. The message was simple. Peace, harmony, cooperation. Concepts the Federation had learned from humans and now held as its highest values. For tense minutes, nothing happened. The dark ships continued their approach. Then, they stopped. They're responding, called the communications officer. The energy pattern matches our message. Gina studied the readings. I think they're curious. They don't understand who we are. Over the next hours, a strange conversation took place between the Guardian and the dark ships. The aliens communicated through energy waves that the Federation scientists translated as best they could. Slowly, understanding grew. The dark ships hadn't known they were destroying living beings. In their reality, physical matter was meaningless. They existed as pure energy and hadn't recognized other forms of life. We need to show them who we are, Gina suggested. All of us together. Taiho agreed. He sent a message to all Federation worlds. Create the biggest energy signature possible. Light every city. Power every device. Show them we are here. Across the galaxy, billions of beings worked together. For one brief moment, the entire Federation glowed with united purpose. The dark ships responded. Their shifting forms stabilized. Their destruction stopped. They understand now, Gina said softly. They see us. On the evacuation planet, Junho received the news with disbelief. They stopped. No weapons were fired. Han smiled. Sometimes the best defense is understanding. When the crisis ended, the Federation had gained new allies. The energy beings agreed to stay away from physical worlds and open new areas of scientific research for Federation scientists. But more importantly, the Federation itself had changed. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years had worked together, evacuated each other's worlds, saved each other's children. In the Great Hall of Records, ancient Elder Geo added a final note to the law about humans. His hands shook with age as he wrote, "We protect humans because they taught us how to protect each other." A young council member watched him write. "Is that why humans are special?" she asked. "Because they know how to protect." Geo smiled. "Humans are special because they understand something few species ever learn. Strength isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about turning enemies into friends." Throughout Federation space, beings that had existed for millennia in careful balance with one another began to understand a new concept. Perhaps survival didn't have to mean constant vigilance against threats. Perhaps it could mean building something together. On the Guardian, Commander Taiho stood with Lieutenant Gina, watching the dark ships move away. They had formed an agreement, a friendship even, with beings so different they barely shared the same reality. 10 years ago, Taiho said, "My people tried to study your combat capabilities." Gina nodded. "And now you know our real strength." "Yes," Taiho agreed. "Not how you fight, but how you make peace." Far away, on a dozen worlds that would have been destroyed without warning, children of many species looked up at the stars without fear. Their worlds had been saved not by weapons or walls, but by the simple, powerful idea that even the strangest beings might be understood. The end.